Did you
Beautiful.
like that? I went with the
Yeah.
magic sand again.
You know how much I love Magic Sand, John. It's
Sure.
it's great to see you, my friend. We are back for another weekly whiskey on Tuesday night. It's good to have you back in the studio. We've been doing various forms of globetrotting over the last month, but we are back here. We are ready. If you're drinking something great in the chat, go ahead and let us know. It's good to see you, my friend. It's shoot, we're in the middle of July already. It's
Yeah, summer's like just kind of scrolling right by, isn't it?
it's scrolling right by, just like our first year anniversary of Weekly Whiskey.
Do you know when that was? That already happened, right?
Well, based on how you look at the clock, it was either last week or it's about 2 months from now. So we have
Okay.
2 different anniversaries, lots of good stuff. But we're not here to talk about that. Let's go ahead and hit on some quick single barrel news, and then we'll dive right into the meat of tonight's segment. It's been a couple of weeks since we've had a live episode, which means it's been a couple of weeks since we've had single barrel news. For fans of the single barrel program, we have been really busy. We dropped 10 barrels over the last 3 weeks. The last one, not the least of which, was Old Forester single barrel proof bourbon, the old Through the Forester in Flames, which is really cool. That one sold out quick. We have Kentucky Spirit from Wild Turkey coming up the first week of August. That got bumped a little bit. And we have 5 or 6 barrels coming, not this week, but the next week. So maybe we'll leave that a little bit in suspense. But yeah, everyone's got the glassware. Check out Rocks Glasses, Glen Cairns when you get a shot. We have a lot of really cool stuff coming, including a Nulu toasted rye. So we'll kick off on that note, and I think that pretty much covers it. So
what else is going on in chat here? Let's see. We had the Our Bourbon Glen Cairns
Anarchy.
coming through with scotch. This is unacceptable, but
Anarchy.
it is Tuesday, so I guess we have no choice but to drink with you.
Man.
And Revered stopped in to say hi. What's up, DJ? How are you? Good to see you.
Good to see DJ. Yeah, it's always good to have friends in the chat. Good time. Yeah, I'm pumped. We have right about, I think next week we should hit about 2 barrels a week for every week until the end of the year. So plenty of bourbon coming.
And I can't do the math on that, but that's a lot of barrels, so stay tuned.
It's like 52.
No. Don't do the math.
I mean, it's not because I'm looking at the spreadsheet. But anyways, so
no spreadsheets allowed. This is
John,
Tuesday.
We have a great segment tonight. Who are we talking to?
Absolutely. So tonight we've got Jill and Molly coming in from Freeland Spirits. They're going to talk to us about, we've got their bourbon and 2 selections of their gin. We're going to kind of hear their story. Dig it.
Yeah.
We could talk about everything from, I think, the bottle itself right down to the name of the company. So without any further ado here, let's bring in Jill and Molly and hear what they've got to say here. Ladies,
Excellent.
How are you?
Great. How are you doing?
We are doing well. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Happy to be here.
Our pleasure.
Welcome. Well, ladies, it is great to have you. Super interesting. It's not often that I get to hear about, talk about, drink about whiskey from the West Coast. I'm actually a Seattle native, so it's great to see you guys down in Portland, Oregon. Really, really great to get to speak with you tonight. We'll cover a bunch of stuff, but first, I'll give you a chance. Go ahead and introduce yourselves. Who are you? What do you do? And what does Freeland mean to you? And we'll get kicked off here.
Oh, well, I'll kick it off. I'm Jill Kuehler. Jill here, founder. Molly, come back. Now I get to say whatever I want about Molly. So,
that's right. This isn't recorded. She'll never know.
Story. So, exactly. So, my background's in food and agriculture, and I was running a nonprofit educational farm here in Portland, which may not, about 10,000 kids go there every year to learn where good food comes from, which may not seem like the most obvious segue into making booze, but I got to know my good friend Corey Carmen. She's a rancher in Eastern Oregon, and whenever Corey comes to town, we drink whiskey together, and it was a fateful whiskey drinking night, and we were drinking some delicious Kentucky bourbon, and we were just talking about there isn't enough we didn't know enough about the grain that was in our whiskey, the story of it, who grew it, what was the face of that farmer. And she was like, well, I've always wanted to incorporate grain production on the ranch. I'll grow it if you make it. And that night was really the birth of Freeland. And also when I got really excited about women in spirits. First of all, there's so few women ranchers. So I got excited about telling Corey's story, but also about highlighting women in these worlds where you don't often see us, obviously including distilling too. So I began a search for a female distiller, knowing there are only a handful of the world in the world, but one happened to be in Bend, Oregon. And I'll let Molly tell about her background. But ultimately, I went out to Bend and threw Molly over my shoulder and drug her back to Portland, and we started making this lovely Freeland gin. So that's a little bit of the background. The further background is that I'm from Texas. Meemaw Freeland. I grew up in her garden with her. She was my grandma. I called her Meemaw. And she just was a really tough gal, primary breadwinner, just really showed me that women could be anything they wanted to be. So even though she never touched a drop of booze in her life, she's now having her memory honored by having the whole distillery named after her. So Freeland is named after Meemaw Freeland. So.
Oh, very cool.
Molly, do you want to give a little bit of your background?
Sure. So Jill said she threw me over her shoulder, but I like to joke that I actually kind of ran from Bend to Portland. So difference of opinion there, but that's okay. So I really started my journey to distillation in college. I was going to school for chemistry with an emphasis in forensics. I thought that I was going to be a forensic anthropologist, and then quickly, well, not super quickly, my junior year of college, quickly realized that that wasn't for me. And I started doing some soul searching, and as you're in college, some drinking and thinking. And I had a friend that was doing a brewing program, and I thought to myself, wow, that sounds fascinating. I would love to learn more. And I ended up looking into the same program she was doing. It was a 2-year wait list, and it led me to actually finding in my opinion, a better program for me. And it was a master's degree in brewing and distilling in Scotland. So after I got my undergrad, I went there to Scotland for a year to learn how to make spirits from the Scots, and came back to Oregon, where I'm from, and have been working in the industry ever since. I started in quality control, and before I met Jill, I was working as a production manager and lead distiller in Bend. And I met Jill, I think it was in 2014, and she was immediately very engaging in the project. Freeland was very engaging. I think she showed me the bottle, what the bottle outlined. I was like, oh, this lady knows what she's doing. And she called me. I ran. I ran to her.
I love it. That's really cool. So you actually studied in Scotland then?
Yes, I did a whole master's program there, including a little bit of a research, which was not in distillation. It was actually on Gaussian energies of hop isomers, hop alpha acid isomers. I'm really going to bungle that name, but I really loved it. I got to meet a lot of different people in the industry throughout the world, and a lot of them are doing really well, and they're in a lot of different areas. So that's been really fascinating to watch.
Interesting. It's funny you mentioned that. I'm actually a reformed craft beer fiend myself. So I started in craft beer and was all about the alpha rhizomes and stuff, and then I moved on over to spirits. But that's really cool. Did you get to work with any specific distilleries in Scotland that you? Maybe we'll just segue that one right back to you.
Put
Joe.
a pin in that one, and let's go back to the bottle design a little bit. Actually,
yeah, these are crazy. I haven't seen anything like this on the shelf. And I'm really curious what inspired. Like, this is bonkers to me. I love it. Other than the fact that it doesn't fit on my shelf that well, but like it really stands out.
Well, I like to say give her room. So it's it was really just really knowing, the spirit space is obviously pretty crowded. There's another craft brand entering every day, and I knew I couldn't always be in the liquor store telling the story of Freeland. So it was really, how could this bottle tell our story for us? And so it's in the shape of really raindrop, kind of an homage to the Pacific Northwest and all of our rain here and the beautiful agriculture. To me, Freeland is an agricultural product. When I think of the future rye we're making and supporting those growers, it's really like, what could be more value added of a rye crop than to turn it into a beautiful rye whiskey? So that's a little bit about the shape. And then there's a woman on it. I don't know if the viewers can really see it, but it's a woman holding up a stalk of grain. And in my mind, it's really like, what if Meemaw could have been anything she wanted to be in the world, kind of not held back by patriarchy, but, women just really going for for whatever empowers them, whatever their dreams are. So that was really the idea of the bottle. And, we think of her as the goddess that inspires us every day. So
I love that.
No, we're not going to get in focus.
I tried. I gave it my very best. Yeah, I love it. The embossing is really cool. I have to admit, this is one of the more striking bottles that has come across my desk in a really long time, which is cool. And I really, we talked about whiskey, and I was like, wait, there's some gin in here too, which is cool. So, did you guys start with gin? Did you start with whiskey and then move into gin? What was, what's kind of your thought as you go forward and you flesh out your portfolio? And I think you just kind of dropped you guys are working on some rye too.
Indeed, we are. Yes, I think that's probably what Molly and I are both most excited about right now. But I'll tell a little bit of the story of the gin, and Molly, maybe you can talk about the process of it and then the future rye. So obviously, whiskey's the aged product. So we wanted to actually start making some money. And we love gin. Gin is, I would say, for both of us, a very close second love. I have come to, this is now my first love, and like this blue bottle is not only like what we started with, it's just become like our flagship, and it's just such a unique, interesting gin, and it just really tells our story. So as we started working on Freeland Gin, the idea was really like what would embody, like I grew up in Mima's garden. How could our gin taste like Mima's garden? How could it, evoke like the cucumbers that I helped my grandma grow? The challenge with that is obviously the fresh ingredients. So we have a 500-gallon copper pot still that we call the Hell Bitch, named after a lonesome dove, an old Western. I grew up reading in Texas. My whole family grew up reading it. And Hell Bitch was the horse who could not be tamed. So that's the name of our beautiful 500-gallon pot still that we do all of the traditional heat distillation on. But Molly really latched onto this idea of like, what would grandma's fresh garden gin taste like? The problem is if we put cucumber or fresh mint into the Hell Bitch, they would die because of the heat. So Molly, with her chemistry background, knew of a tool called the Rotovap, which is it's like a vacuum. It works as a vacuum, so you can distill essentially at room temperature. So we can use locally grown. They're grown just 8 miles up from the distillery at Vibrant Valley Farm, a women-owned farm. So cucumber, mint, rosemary, thyme are all done on this Rotovap, while 14 other botanicals are done through traditional heat distillation. And so that makes the gin super interesting and unlike really any other gin in the world. So when you first pick up on the nose, when you take a smell of it, you really pick up on those fresh botanicals that are done on the Rotovap. And then as you continue to sip, you pick up on some of the rest. There's pink peppercorn you may pick up on, different citrus. But Molly, I'll let you jump in, tell a little bit more about the gin, and I'll sip.
So when we were first starting, this was, we agreed that this is what we wanted to start our brand with. And we really wanted to nail it. We wanted to create something that was unique and flavorful and still very true to gin. So I did about 50 individual distillations of botanical by botanical to get this really started. And with each of those distillates, I'd pipette by pipette to look at the ratios between ingredients to see how they work together. And we ended up really settling into this flavor thanks to the Rotovap and allowing us to use vacuum tools and allowing that to allow us to make to use a lot of fresh ingredients. And when we had kind of our base gin, which is the 14 other botanicals, they're really delicious all by themselves. When you elevate that with this flavor,
We lost her again, folks.
More technical difficulties.
Well, I can tell you that the layers of complexity that you've got in that gin are really nice. It does come through with that big, bright citrus flavor. There's a lot of the floral background too. And then I do catch some of that vegetal cucumber type of, like on the back side of it. It's really, I hadn't noticed it until as you were kind of going through and listing some of the things in there. I was really starting to pick out, there's like,
the time for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
it's a very delicate gin, very floral, has a lot of interesting notes. And my favorite thing is with those 19 different botanicals, you can sip it throughout the whole course of a day, if you will, and you'll pick up on some of the different flavor notes that are in there. Like every once in a while, but not all the time, I'll pick up sour anise. It's very low ingredient on the list, but it is in there, and just every once in a while, I get a little hints of it.
I'm curious to see what this is like after you let it sit in a glass for a while and really let some of the evaporation take hold, and then get some of those real nuanced flavors and aromas coming up out of it. Yeah, I could nose that gin for quite a while. That's really nice. Actually haven't tasted the dry gin yet either, so I'll be pretty excited to put these side by side and kind of compare the two.
I've been putting a dent in the dry gin.
It's
not even. I won't even try and cover it up.
Yeah, we are getting just the right type of weather for this stuff too. I mean, summertime for me is like gin and agave spirits, like crazy. And
yeah, it's refreshing.
These are going to go nicely.
So I am curious. So between the dry gin and your guys' standard gin, what encouraged you to do Navy strength? Assuming you guys went for Navy strength with the 57, is there any change in the botanicals there? I'm kind of curious about what led you to move on to the dry gin.
So really it was the pandemic. It was pandemic inspired. We were doing a lot of hand sanitizer production for local agencies near us. And we were just kind of dreaming as we were bottling it of a new product.
Molly,
and the dry gin.
Are you there? I'm also losing connection.
We've got you.
Yeah, we got you. Okay. So the dry gin is an absolutely different gin. We wanted it to be basically night and day from the flagship gin. It has 7 different botanicals, and it's more on what we wanted to be the savory side. Savory with this umami kind of flavor that goes really well with the cocktail of choice, which was a martini. So both of the distillers at the time, we love a dirty martini. We love olives. Like I could almost have a glass full of olives and just pour gin on top of it. And we really.
I mean,
they both dropped off now. Let's do a tasting with this, man. Let's go through these and just kind of share some of our notes. And if they both end up refreshing, then we'll pull them right back in as we wrap a little bit of tasting here. But let's go into that Navy strength dry gin and see what.
Dude, that's what I have poured right now.
Is like.
I was thinking like
Perfect.
This would be fantastic with like a blue cheese stuffed olive. I'm a huge martini fan.
Oh man, I love spicy ones too. Throw some jalapenos in there.
Really? I've actually never had that.
Yeah.
What like
either spicy olive or even and like as your dirty martini, throw a little juice from a pepperoncini jar in there.
Oh,
just to kick it up with still salinity but a little bit of spice to it. I could see that working.
You're rocking my world. I never thought about that.
Delicious.
Because I love to do like a jalapeno margarita or like a jalapeno spice, like a hard lemonade, with like a gin or a whiskey or something. But I had never considered that in a martini.
It looks like they both connected back here in the green room. I'm going to pull everybody back in. Let's see how we do. Welcome back. We've just been sipping booze here and hanging out. So.
That's okay. We were.
I was listening to you chat about.
Go ahead.
Oh, I listened to you chat about spicy, and my favorite olive in here is a garlic jalapeno stuffed olive.
Oh yeah, I could see that being real nice with that.
That's really good.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I get like a little bit of like a white pepper.
The dry gin was really born out of the pandemic of, okay, we're moving into a tough time. We're going to need to step it up a little bit on the proof side. So
right.
It was really about strong gals deserve strong gin, and let's go Navy strength. So
okay,
perfect.
Obviously dry, more juniper forward. This is a lot more of like our martini style gin. Just was sipping it in a Negroni. I like that too. I think of the original gin is much more of like the gimlets, things that have a lot more citrus, and the dry, a lot more in your face.
I love it.
Old English style. So
the Negroni is actually my favorite gin cocktail. So I'm curious, what vermouth do you think pairs best with your Navy, your dry gin? Because I'll go out and buy some. Negroni hands down is my 4-season cocktail. I can drink it anytime.
I usually just do like a dull and sweet, but I have to actually go grab it. I just got the most sustained sweet vermouth.
Okay.
Perfect.
I love it. Even when I'm in Kentucky buying barrels of booze, at the end of the day, like I get down at the restaurant and like I order Negroni, and it like kind of just throws people for a loop. But it's my favorite. What's your favorite
Nice
gin
palate
cocktail,
cleanser.
Molly?
Ooh,
There's Liz speaking in there about
I
the shift to the Navy
Brownies.
strength is tough times call for strong drinks. She's got it right.
Negroni is also my gin cocktail.
Okay, excellent. I'm among friends here.
I also love a white Negroni. That's kind of my summertime switch on it. Add a little like Suze. If you've ever tried that, it's delicious.
Molly, are you back? Is everything good
yes.
over there?
Yes. And I
Perfect.
was thinking about my favorite cocktail, and it is a gin sour. I actually like sours with any kind of alcohol, but gin sour in the summer, that really is the spot.
I think with gin for me, I mean, obviously start out with gin and tonic is kind of like what led me into the gin world. But I mean, lately it's kind of been a couple slices of lime and one or two rocks in gin. I like it sort of just in that chilled state a little bit, a little edge of lime. And then again with a dirty martini, but usually with something spicy in it, whether it's pepperoncini or jalapeno or something. I sort of like that, the salinity balanced out with the gin. I think that works out good. Jay, have you got the you're on mute. Have you got the bourbon handy there? Should we go in and do a little tasting on this now?
Yeah, that sounds good. Sorry, I was popping corks back here and muted myself. Yeah, I have. Let's go ahead and close on up with the bourbon. So, Jill, I'm curious. What can you tell us about the bourbon? Do you have like age, mash bill? Do you guys talk about what cooperage you use at all? What's as John and I are pouring this here, I'd love to hear more about what you guys are putting into your bourbon here.
Yeah, we love the nerdy stats.
Sure. So the background story of the bourbon is it's a source bourbon. So when I kind of had that fateful whiskey drinking night with my rancher friend, I knew it was going to take a really, really long time to get to our own whiskey. And we'll mostly be making rye. Corn isn't a huge crop in Oregon.
Sure.
There's a lot of rye though. So rye will be what we're actually making on our Hell Bitch. But the bourbon is a source bourbon and it's a blend. So when I knew like I had to find a space, I had to find money, I had to do all the things. So I went ahead and partnered with a distillery to put 50 barrels of whiskey away. And I knew rye is my favorite whiskey. So I wanted it to be a high rye mash bill.
Sure.
So that really turned for, and that's what when we first released the bourbon, it was a blend of, we also found some 12 years. So it's a blend of 4 and 12. And then we finish it Pinot Noir barrels from Elk Cove Winery, which is one of the original wine families of Oregon. And they're partners of ours and really good friends. And most of what we like to do at Freeland is really a collaborative effort. So that's the Freeland bourbon blend of 4 and 12. And finished for anywhere. Each batch is a little slightly different, but finished my barrels.
Okay. Can you say, is it sourced from Indiana, Kentucky, somewhere on the West Coast, or is this kind of undisclosed? All right, we'll leave that as undisclosed. But now tasting it, I think this is a
Molly can step velocity.
What's that, Jeff?
The Pinot Noir comes through really, really nicely.
Yeah, there's good background of sweetness to it. You kind of get a lot of the you get some of the younger notes from the 4-year but like brings forward a caramel candy type of front palate.
It has nice oak structure too.
That oak. I was a little bit torn. I wouldn't have been able to guess that it was 4 and 12 at all, but I would have told you that there's a good oak backbone to it for something that somehow comes through bright and youthful. So it's interesting that blend works so nicely together when it's married up in that wine cask.
Yeah, coffee toffee pound cake. That's pretty nice stuff.
Good tasty notes.
Now, do you guys have any indication when, so your rye, is it aging right now? Is it just been put down? When can we expect to see a rye whiskey hitting the market?
I think we're still about 2 years away. We started putting barrels down in 2018, and it's going to be at least 3 years, potentially 4, before it's ready. We're holding on to it as long as possible to make sure.
Sure.
Okay.
So
Understood.
it looks like we lost Molly again. But Jill, maybe you can bring this one home for us. Can we talk about what size barrels these are resting in and where you're actually doing your storage? I mean, is this stuff storing in warehouses in Oregon? Is this going to be living someplace else?
Nope, we're doing full-size barrels, and they're being stored at Freeland for now. We are definitely starting to push the limits of our storage capacity. So, but they will stay.
Yeah.
They'll stay in the state. We may find a partner to help start storing barrels for us. But yeah, Molly, do you want to talk a little bit about the mash bill and the farmers involved in the rye?
Sure. So we have a mash bill that's pretty unique. It's 70% rye, a little bit of barley, and a little bit of buckwheat. And all that grain is organic,
Buckwheat.
and it comes from buckwheat. It adds this really nice pistachio ice cream note to it. So it ends up
Cool.
adding a lot of depth.
I'm glad she got that in just in time. So, I like when she talks about the mash bill. But Corey, my friend, has grown of the rye for us, and then there's a Camas Country Mill that's just about 90 miles south of Portland, and Tom Hutton is the owner there, and he grows hundreds of acres of grain, and he grows some of that buckwheat and rye for us, but then he also partners with farmers and ranchers across the state to source from them, and then he mills the grain directly to what Molly's specs are. So when it enters into our system, it's like it's really milled exactly to the way Molly wants it. So they're an amazing partner to us, and it's just gonna, it's everything about our rye whiskeys is all about Oregon, and highlighting Tom and Corey and all of our growers is really important to us.
That's awesome. I love it. So before we close up shop here for the night, I am curious, what is, obvious, other than the atmosphere, the climate's a little different, what is the kind of the biggest hardship that you guys have overcome to bring Freeland to market? I know starting your own distillery in Oregon is certainly no easy thing, but I'm curious, what is the biggest, roadblock that you guys have overcome that you're proud of that has brought Freeland? And, are you expanding to other states soon? Like, when can we expect to see Freeland, on shelves across America? And what are you most proud of overcoming as you brought it to market?
Yeah, I would say bringing it to market, period, was the hardest part. It was really just getting it built in that year of like, oh, are we going to be able to pull this off? When you look at the landscape of just finding capital, we've got 5% of small business loans going to women, less than 2% of venture capital money going to women. So there's just, added obstacles, but I think also that adds to the resiliency factor that we bring to it too. So once we actually had the space and had the bottle, it's been hard, honestly, to keep it. We've had a ton of demand, and it's just been super exciting. So we're trying to be pretty smart about how we grow. We're still pretty focused on the West Coast, but you can go to freelandspirits.com and find a lot of our online partners. As you all know, we're not legally allowed to ship out of state at the moment, but we do have a lot of partners that can, anywhere in the country at this point. So, and you'll be able to do that right from our website pretty soon as e-commerce options start expanding. So it's really exciting to see ourselves starting to become a more national brand, not just something for Portland in our own backyard.
I love it. Well, that is very cool. So you kind of led in there. That's an excellent segue. So if people are looking for more information about Freeland Spirits, where can they expect to find you? Can they find you on social media? Obviously, your website's a good resource, but I expect we'll have a lot of people curious. I'm curious where they can find you.
Yes, please follow us on all the socials, and head straight to our website to find where you can access your Freeland.
Excellent. Well, folks, thank you again for joining us tonight. Jill and Molly, it has been a pleasure to have you. So go ahead, follow them on, I assume. Actually, no, I tagged you guys on Twitter this morning. So I know you're on Twitter, you're on Facebook, you're on Instagram, and find them at freelandspirits.com. Molly and Jill, once again, this was awesome. If you haven't, check out the bourbon, really good. I'm loving this dry gin. I think I'm going to drink that for the whole rest of the night and see if I can, cruise on through. But this has been awesome. If you're looking for more information from John, you can find him at thebourbonfinder.com. He is on Instagram. He has his own website. He's writing reviews like a madman, crazy content. So definitely check him out. Once again, we are here at Weekly Whiskey. Give us a like, give us a subscribe. And if you're looking for more from me, I'm Jay from Whiskey Raiders, whiskyraiders.com. I'll have a review up. I have a nice written piece ready to go here as well. And you can see our ratings and reviews. But once again, guys, thank you so much for joining us. It was great. It's really fun to see stuff coming out of the Pacific Northwest, which, frankly, we don't see a lot of spirits coming out of. So I wish you guys the best. And I can't wait to see what comes of this rye when it comes ready. So I'm looking forward to drinking that.
Absolutely.
Thank
Let's
you
stay
so
tuned
much.
for that, right?
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Can't
Cheers.
either.
Thank you.
Good deal.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Yeah.